Hi, I'm Patricia Greenberg, and I want to welcome you all to this show where we talk about all things aging well. Not only do we talk about the aspects of aging well, but I love having guests on to talk about lives well lived. My guest today is Larry Rosenberg. He's an adventurous aging approach to helping people 60 and over. Act three, I mean, that's what we're talking about, the stage of life where you've made it through the early years, you've made it through the mid years, and here you are. Whether you call it advanced age, an elder, a senior citizen, I don't think the labels really matter. What matters is that, are you living your best life at this time? Larry's show is the Larry Show, and I love this. It includes stage shows written and starring Larry based on his life, singing songs and telling stories, and just sharing with the world what he's about. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Delighted to be here.
Now, you have perfected the idea, both in concept and in reality, how to really flourish in your advanced years. Tell us your story.
I had a standard career. I was an academic, PhD, professor of marketing, management trainer, consultant, coach for business, public relations with holistic health. And then I hit my 60s and I said, what's it all about? Is this what I'm going to keep doing? And I had an illness, intestinal illness. It stopped me. It slowed me down. It forced me to look in the mirror and to say, hey, I'm not aging well. And I'm getting my parents' illnesses. I have to do something. And I did it all. I became holistic. And that got me going. And then I said, I need a purpose, passionate purpose. And I looked inside. I was taking singing lessons. And I said, I'm a showman. I'm in show business, but I'm an educator. So education, show business, I'm in edutainment. I'm an edutainment.
Wonderful, wonderful moniker. Yeah.
That's my label. That's my gift to the world. And then COVID came along and we all slowed down and the gigs were harder to get. And I looked inside and I said, am I still an edutainer? Well, yes, but I've become something else. I've become an adventurous aging coach. I was now in my 70s. I had cancer at 77. Whoa. Had to look in the mirror again. And I had to go deeper into holistic practice. And I came out, moved to Florida from Arizona, Sedona, Tucson, South Florida. And here I am at 80. I used to call myself a senior. At 80, I had to look in the mirror again. The number, it's a big number. And now an elder, an extraordinary elder, where being competent, wellness, making a contribution, being part of communities that are important to me, and being creative, passionate, and making a good life. And here I am.
You know, Larry, I can imagine when people meet you and you say you're 80 and their jaws drop, right? I mean, I'm sure you get that all the time. And yes. So there's the facade of us doing things to not look our age. And then there's what you're doing is the inside. The inside is coming out, showing what it means to live a full life, regardless of your age. I want to ask you, you looked in the mirror. What flipped the switch? What, light bulbs go off in our mind all the time about, oh, that would be a great idea, or I should do this, or, I should get off of the couch and exercise, I'm not feeling well, I should go get this checked. What was going on emotionally that made that defining moment for you?
There is something in me. I'm not sure if it's genetic. If it is, I thank my beloved parents in heaven, or it's in my personality of many years of being active, creative, successful, effective. I call it resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And I call it not wanting to be bored and not wanting to do the same thing. I hear about people who retire after 50 years of basically doing the same thing. And I'm sure they got better at it and built networks and got all sorts of rewards and have great pensions. But I've always been one every few years to change, to shift. And sometimes it would be a crisis. And in aging over 60, health crises do come. And that forces me to look in the mirror, forces me to change. I will not be a victim. Time and time again, I'm in an organization, I'm in a job, I'm in a relationship, I'm in a situation. It's not working out. It's not good. I will not suffer. I will not be bored.
Good for
And
you. Mm-hmm.
I used to set it up that the other person or institution kicked me out. Now I'm the one who decides to leave and move on.
That's a
And
very profound point, because that's what people do. They sabotage their success in an effort to leave without admitting that they really want to leave. And it's easy to say, they threw me out, they ran out of money, the business went into the ground, the person was a horrible husband, a horrible wife, a terrible parent. The reality is you wanted out.
that's right. That's right. And I was smart enough to know how to get out and to make that my project. So I'm a project manager.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a project entrepreneur. And life is one project after another. One's coming up, going to Africa for 3 months.
Oh, wow. Tell us about that.
Here, Kenya, Africa, 23 miles from Nairobi, middle of nowhere, a farm, a dusty farm area where there's this gorgeous orphanage called Seeds in His Garden. It's a Christian orphanage. I'm Jewish, but that's okay. They're doing good work. A friend of mine was there last year. She was 75. She's going back. She says, Larry, this is what it's all about. I said, can I come with you? Sounds good. The weekends, we'll go to wildlife parks, safari parks. And during the week, there's 30 kids, all the victims of abuse and trauma. And where their main structure is school, the British style school system. And my friend Deborah and I, we're there for them to grow, to have fun, to be spontaneous, to sing, to dance, to express themselves, to learn who they are, to learn skills, to overcome blockages through one-on-one tutoring. I don't know what my job description is. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that is one of my new monikers is people are talking about aging gracefully, and I keep saying aging peacefully. I'm changing it to aging peacefully, because you want to be at peace with everything you do.
Yes.
You know, Larry, I have so many things to ask you, and I want to, next up, I want to talk about that. You know, you went on to create the Larry Show. You know, and you mentioned earlier you're part entertainer, part educator. You know, I know, having taught for many years in the classroom or teaching seminars or being an educator is a very good way to hone your talent for being on stage. So how did you merge those two?
I realized when I was very young that I was an entertainer. I was a singer. I was the only one among my cousins before the age of 10 who would get up there in front of the club of cousins and sing, "The girl that I marry will have to be." And then my voice changed and people said, Larry, you're a lousy singer. I went in the closet for 50 years, but I could sing in French. I could sing in Japanese.
Wow.
So here I am, retired, 60. I had quit a full-time job. I'm in Sedona, Arizona. Beautiful place. Be yourself, grow, spiritual, metaphysical. And I took singing lessons, and I sang at my birthday parties for friends, 70, 71, 2 years in a row. And then I went to a coach And I said, will you help me put together a review, a one-man cabaret act? And she said, Larry, I see you doing a one-man show of your life. You've had a fascinating life. And next day I started writing the show. 6 months, I debuted it. I've done it in Australia. I've done it in Scotland. I've done it in the United States 50 times.
Wow.
And when I was, after a few years of being a professor of marketing, and I was a good lecturer, but I said, I'm not reaching the people. We're not engaging. We're not getting synergy, where what they're learning, what I'm teaching is bigger than both of us. And so I used entertaining vehicles, approaches in my teaching. So fast forward, I'm looking for something to do. I'm taking the singing lessons. My teacher tells me I'm pretty good, mainly in expression rather than having being the next Frank Sinatra. And I'm going to be singing, and I'm going to have a one-man show about my life, the liberation of Larry.
Wow.
And I came out of 4 closets, from being an academic to being in the real world, from being Jewish to being universal spirituality, from being an American to living and working in Japan and traveling around the world, from pretending that I was straight to coming out as gay. And so those 4 dimensions of my life, and I now have 4 shows, one for seniors, which is not about gay or not about any of the tragedies of my life, learning experiences of my life, and another one about my cancer, Larry's Cancer Monologue, how I got over it, being creative and holistic, I'm out there. And what's next? I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I'm still exploring it.
I can't wait to hear what's next. I'm looking forward.
Good.
Larry, you also do wellness coaching. And do you find people in your age group receptive to the information and the life experience that you give? Is it we didn't grow up with coaches.
That's right.
Right? It's a different world now.
But I love to give advice. It was called coaching. It was called counseling.
Yes, counseling, right.
Consulting, excuse me. It was called consulting. It was called teaching. It was called training. It was business coaching, then life coaching, and now senior coaching, or what I prefer to call adventurous aging coaching. I've always taken advice. I've always sought advice. I've always given advice. So it's who I am, not just what I do. And then I realized I was intuitive, that there were answers to people's questions that I don't know where they came from. And now I believe that intuition is the language of the soul. And it's not just my brain-mind system that is coming up with the answers. It's coming from beyond me. It's coming from the collective consciousness. It's coming from divinity. Wherever it's coming from, I'm happy to be a channel. And that's how I'm writing these days. The creativity just pours out of me. I used to have writer's block.
Yeah.
No more. It just comes out. I used to prepare my lectures with meticulous notes and punctuation. And now, give me a theme, give me a minute or two to think of a few talking points, and turn on the camera.
Oh my God, you're mirror imaging me. I remember I would do 4 to 5 hours of homework for a 1-hour lecture, and I taught 3 days a week in a community college. So I knew I needed somewhere between 10 and 12 hours. And it was so, in retrospect, so unproductive and so time consuming, but I was so scared I was going to say something wrong or do something wrong. Let's talk about that for a second, Larry. You have nothing to lose no matter what you try.
Well put. Yes. Nothing to, and everything to gain.
And everything to gain. I love that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you make a mistake or you flub, you learn from it and you know for the next time. We all didn't used to think that. We all thought, well, if I say something wrong or do something wrong in front of a crowd, in front of a classroom, I am doomed. That's the end of it. But we're thinking so differently about that now. And that's the part of that's the wellness component that people aren't paying attention to.
Right.
There's eating well, there's drinking your water, getting enough sleep, managing your stress. And I can't say enough about all these things. But that turning inside yourself and addressing that aspect of your wellness is critical for the rest of everything else. Yeah.
I call it, I've used the metaphor on in this interview, looking in the mirror, looking inside, living life from inside out. Most of my life was about credentials, getting an MBA, getting a PhD, becoming an assistant professor of marketing at New York University, moving to Japan and being executive director of a management institute for the University of Maryland. But now it's what's coming from inside of me. And that comes from confidence. And that comes from knowing who I am and realizing that the adventure is climbing the mountain because I want to climb, not because the mountain is there.
Absolutely. You spent a long time living in Japan. So how do their attitudes towards aging and their elders in their communities differ from here in the United States?
It's a very different culture. I often say that there's Japan and then there's the moon, living on the moon. That Japan is so different. Unfortunately, they're becoming more like us.
Yeah, yeah.
The lifespan is going down because they're doing dairy and meat and McDonald's and chemicals. But they have a base of respect for aging, respect for community, respect for family, respect for ancestors. We don't have that in the West. That's an anchor for family, for the family that has aged. And that focus is a very different place. Although industrialization, urbanization, computers, internet is forcing them to dismantle their framework about family. They're getting old age homes and assisted living places, not as much as us, but the trend is in that direction. So we are exporting a lot of the wrong stuff and not exporting some of the right stuff, like a national health plan that's designed for America, not what the Brits have or the Canadians have, but an American plan. So we're all culture.
It's crazy because I came this morning from visiting someone who's in an old age home, assisted living, senior living, whatever term you want to put on it. And it is such a far cry from living with family or people that love us and care for us. But Larry, that's a double-edged sword. Sometimes the level of care that a person needs is beyond the scope of what a family member can do. I don't want to get too far off in that conversation, but caregiving, caretaking is a hot button issue right now with how much do we want to devote our lives to the long-term 24-hour care of a family member. And when you watch the Blue Zones and these other shows that are out now about these pockets throughout the world where the children take care of their parents and the grandchildren pitch in. And then when the parents get to that point, the children are primed and to be able to do it. And I did it willingly with both my parents, and my mother-in-law lived to be 103, and we had her in the house until then. And when the care got difficult for us, we brought caretakers in, caregivers, the terminology. But I love the fact that my daughter had a grandmother in the house until she was 103. It was a lesson well learned for the whole family. So, when I hear the Japanese model that the seniors stay in the house with their families all the way till the end, I think it much better prepares people for life.
I think it does. I think it does. And we're talking about 10,000 years of conditioning, where
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
3 generations lived together. It's only been the last 100 or so years that the Industrial Revolution changed everything, and including it's changing in Japan. If you have a small apartment in Japan, you can't bring the
Right.
elder in unless you move into the elder's house. And they're not selling houses and moving as much. So they've worked it out in their way. Um, I believe that the whole housing hyphen healthcare system, we have to reinvent it. I'm not happy with what's waiting for me.
I
Uh,
get it. Mhm.
I'm still active,
Yeah.
but I would like to be in a group home. I always thought, oh, I need to be alone. I'm creative. It's my space. It's my entertainment. Uh, we Americans are too much individual. And so the harmony of the group and finding a few close people who are plus or minus my age. Yes, if we bring some younger people in, or if there's an older people needing some care. And we each have a private room, but there are these common cluster
Yes. Yes. Hmm.
of a yoga place, of a piano, of a large television, um, of a place for neighbors to come in, for potlucks, um, what whatever it is. So we have to look at our centric systems, where we make centers, and what we're doing there. And I don't want to be in a gated community. I
Right.
don't want to be in a high rise. I'm in a high rise now, but it's temporary. Um, I want to be close to the earth. I want to have a garden in the back. All these blue zones have gardens.
Yes, well, that and also the concept of not being alone and having a community. And it isn't necessarily blood relatives, but loneliness, as you know, is the new killer. And that's something we have to work as a society is to prevent people from being alone. So we know all too well. And one of the things that I'm doing is that when somebody loses a spouse or a family member and they're now living alone, unmarried children living with parents, and then something happens to the parent. Everybody goes when the person dies and surrounds them and spends the first week or two, maybe even a month, making sure they're okay. And then they're left alone. And that, I think, I would like to see more programs of younger people going to visit older people. My daughter's school did that when she was little, bringing puppies in to visit older people. So I think the idea of assisted living and old age homes, like we like to call them, the hybrid of what you're talking about is that it is a community and a communal living that, maybe you do have your own bedroom, but there's always somebody there to hang out with, watch a movie, read a book, go for a walk, go out in the garden. That is, I can't say enough of that kind of living. We're all so many widows and widowers living in these giant mansions by themselves with a nurse. And I don't care how beautiful the house is. What kind of life is that? That's not a life well lived, no matter how much money and how much you're surrounded by. Larry, you share a personal journey about your own health problems, and your insight is amazing and gives us hope. I mean, there's a lot of people, that reach your age and really give up, and you're just getting started. Tell us about that.
It's a decision. It's a decision. I wrote an article recently called "How to Become the Youngest Person in the Room
Hmm.
When You're." And there is something about me, call it a zest for life, call it a sense of humor, call it wanting to stay active in my brain, um, call it wanting to be in good shape. I mean, I know the consequences of not doing these things. And so I put together a life where, and we need to reinvent language while we're reinventing housing and healthcare and government, I hope. And the language of it wellness rather than healthcare, vitality and vibrancy as important qualities of life, social time, creative time, innovative time, a balance of I prefer the word movement to exercise.
Absolutely. I love that. Yep. I'm there too. Yes.
If it happens to involve a machine and I do the machines,
Mm-hmm.
um, in terms of eating, I just went through some prolonged fasting, fruit juice fast. I lost muscle mass. I'm getting it back. I go back to the machines, but I cleaned my system out. I educated myself. I'm a master of salads.
Mm-hmm.
I have discovered salads and soups. And so my creativity flows into the eating area. And
Amazing.
now I invite people over. I'm ready to teach people. In Japan, I learned Japanese cooking. I can cook a 14-course Japanese meal. These small courses. It's called kaiseki ryori. It's to me, it's one of the most delicious and elegant and creative cuisines in the world.
And the health benefits are astounding because
And
you love what you're eating. It's beautiful. It's appealing. It's eating together as a community. It's normal portions. You're not gorging. You're not sitting in the car eating. You're not sitting in front of a television set just shoving food in. There's a whole kind of esoteric aspect that goes with the way they dine there, right? It's
everything about our lives. A health crisis, and I've had a few. At 60, the intestinal issue, and at 77, colon cancer. And I hope that's the last one, but if not, I'll learn whatever I learn. But meanwhile, I keep revising my philosophy of life. I keep looking at my mindset. I prefer mind scope rather than mindset, rather than things. I look at the scope of what my mind is allowing me to do well, or to discourage me from doing. And lately, I've been looking at the levels of life. So level one are the fundamentals, the foundation: eating, movement, sleeping, water. Then level two is expansion, and family and friends, and communities, and expression, singing, dancing, hobbies, curiosity. And then level three, the meaning of life. And there it's spiritual connection, and that's going to be different for everybody. A passionate purpose in life, which for me has been the Larry Show, edutainment, which is now Adventurous Aging. What's next? I don't know. People say, oh, Larry, you're not making enough money. Focus and make a business. And I say, I'm sorry, I'm having too much fun living life. And if I want to revise, if I want to change, I will do that. And I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm being creative, innovative. That's what's important to me. That's what keeps me young, active, healthy.
It's amazing. This is kind of a twofold question. So you live in Florida, the age-old cliche about the abundance of retirees living it up there. How do you like being there? And I'm more referring to your personal sense of peace, separate from your professional life. Do you find that you've lived in the desert? And I'm very familiar with Arizona. You've lived in Tucson, in Sedona. I'm sure you've lived and traveled and worked all over the country, if not all over the world. Tell me about climate and how that affects you.
South Florida is the 9th place I've lived in.
Okay.
So from Philadelphia to Columbus, Ohio, to New York City, to Amherst, Massachusetts, to Tokyo, Japan for 10 years.
Wow.
Then to Washington, D.C., Maryland, Sedona, Tucson. Tucson was a mistake. No offense to people who are watching the show from Tucson. It didn't work for me.
It just didn't work for you. Yeah, there's no right or wrong. It's just, that's why what climate-wise speaks to you in terms of finding your peaceful wellness. Yeah.
So what I realize is that a city is a resource base. And yes, there's the climate. Yes, there's the mountains, the beautiful desert. And now I'm back at the ocean. Because I grew up near the ocean with summer in Atlantic City before the casinos
Yeah.
changed it. And South Florida it's a garden. This would be a jungle if we didn't manicure it and mow the grass and trim the flowers. And I love the green. I love the ocean. I love the flowers. I love the all year summer. And I love the diversity, the cultural diversity. And I love the ethnic restaurants and ethnic food stores. And I love the innovation that's happening in business and education and healthcare. There are problems with the healthcare system just because there's so many demands on it because of the old population. So they haven't learned to get it right yet, South Florida, but they're working on it. They have to. And then it comes down to community, and then it comes down. I'm single. I'm looking for a partner at 80. I'm available, folks. But a family of choice, a chosen family, and I'm learning who my close friends are, and they're all over the country. They're all over the world, and they're here in South Florida too. And I will go 40 miles for a weekend to be with my chosen family in Jupiter. I'm down in Pompano Beach.
Okay.
So I'm still working the matrix out. It's all a matrix. It's all choices. It's all combinations. But city, ambience, institutions, restaurants are all part of the how do I surround myself with an environment? What kind of garden do I want to grow?
Right. What are your words of wisdom for those of us coming up behind you, people in their 60s who haven't quite embraced the fact that they are in their third act?
Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and look at the calendar and see that you don't have an infinite amount of time, which of course we never did, but we always assumed when we were in our 20s, our 40s, even our 50s. And say, what kind of a life do you want? What kind of a life did I have? What do I treasure about it? What do I want to change? We've all created bad habits. And they're not bad per se, but they're limiting to who we want to be. So who do you want to be when you grow up? Some of it is chance and serendipity and synchronicity. I'm a great believer in those things, but also to move in a direction of more creativity and higher consciousness. And I love people who are multidimensional and fascinating. People like you and me. And these are the people I want to be with and hang out with. So how do I steer my life? How do I revise? So the adventurous aging is deciding on what kind of adventures I want to have, exploring it. Carpe diem, seize life. Every day an adventure, and then moving toward other larger adventures, and looking at your resources. What do I need nutrition-wise? What do I need movement-wise? What do I need healthcare-wise? What do I need transportation-wise? Living condition-wise? And tinkering and reconfiguring our lives. We are designers. We are creators of our life. We co-create with divinity that gives us this body, mind, spirit system. And let's make the most of it. And Act 3 means two acts are gone, and we're in the Act 3. We could say 3A, 3B, up to 60 to 80. I thought of myself as a senior. Over 80, I'm now an elder. When I reach 100, will I have to come up with a centenarian? Whatever. But make time count. This is precious living opportunities. And redesign it, redevelop it, rearrange it, reimagine it, and come up with the best life possible that I can live at this in this era, in this time frame that I'm in. And I invite other people to go through the process that I have gone through.
Larry, your level of enthusiasm for I always say every hour, every minute, every second. Like sometimes we do have to live minute by minute, right? Sometimes we just have to say, where are we today? And I love what you said about it's all behind us. You know, you hear all the jokes. We're on the back nine. We're in, we're on third base now. We're almost home. All these cliches and analogies, but your enthusiasm for continuing to move forward it's wonderful. And I can't tell you what an inspiration, because my last question in all my interviews, and this is going to be hard because you've told me the whole 40 minutes almost that we've been together. What do you like about getting older? What's the one gem? I know there's a million things and we could talk all day about it, but is there one thing that really sticks out?
Just made a W. Wisdom. Kids are enamored by the data. Then we start going to school, we get information, we become professionals if we have a career, and that's knowledge. And now I'm in the wisdom era. Mm-hmm. And wisdom is based on knowledge, but it's knowledge in practice. And part of my skill of the practice comes from beyond me. It comes from divinity, comes from I am presence, the creator. And but I'm realizing it, I'm using it, I'm developing it, I'm sharing it. People are sharing it with me. So it took me this long, I'm 80 years old, to realize that I have wisdom, and that wisdom allows me to develop and enjoy and celebrate a marvelous life.
Your advice for people living in regret?
Get over it. Get out of it. Look deeply into what the regret is telling you. Really look in the mirror and have a conversation with your inner self in the mirror. And if you need a friend, if you need a therapist, that's fine too. But tackle what's grabbing you, what's stopping you, what's holding you back from being your best self, your thriving self. Do you survive? Do you thrive? It's a choice. That's one of the most important words up there. Decisions, yes. No, it's choices. And the choice is, do I have fish or chicken? Do I have vegetables or fruit? And the choice is how to live my life. And live it from wisdom, live it from vitality, get some role models. I'm Jane Fonda. I'm always looking at what she's doing and saying. She has things to teach me. And now I'm teaching other people. And that's what we do. It's about sharing. One of my mantras is healing, and that's healing the past, which limits us, which gives us the regrets that you just asked about it. Growing is growing into our potential. You know, Larry's potential is different than Patricia's potential, which is different than somebody else's. And to live it my fullness, full and fulfilling. Fullness. I used to say happy. Now I prefer fulfilling life.
I really like that. Yeah, that's really wonderful. Mm-hmm.
I'm re-examining the language. And then I live from that place. And that's what it's all about, Alfie.
What a wonderful conversation. So delighted to have you, and to have you as a new friend. You know, it's just wonderful to get to know you. And if you want to learn more about adventurous aging, go to Larry's Facebook profile. And you can, Larry, can I give your email out? Are you open to do that? Or do you have a website that you prefer? Yeah, it's Larry, ROS, LARRYROS @gmail.com. And reach out to Larry for all kinds of things. We could talk about what you have going on, further interviews, advice, coaching, etc. Thank you again, Larry, so much. It's been a delight. And thank you. You're welcome. And thank you all for listening to Eat Well, Live Well, Age Well. And please subscribe to my channel for more engaging discussions on all things aging well. And for feedback or show topic discussions, you can also reach me at patriciagreenberg.com. Thanks again, Larry. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, listeners. Bye-bye.